quickly talk about the Lekki Headmaster. Let's work on chapter by chapter summary. This particular summary has almost every single thing that is needed to be studied when it comes to the novel in general. So we're going to be discussing this particular novel, looking at a summary chapter by chapter. It has all the names of the characters in here. It has all the locations and everything that is needed. So whatever question you see, everything is actually in this particular summary. So let us start quickly with chapter 1. Mr. Bebo Adewale, the principal of Stardom Schools, unexpectedly breaks down in tears during the morning assembly. His unusual demeanor, walking slowly, failing to smile, and staring blankly, alarms both students and staff. He attempts to speak but cannot, and soon tears stream down his face. Shocked, the vice principal, Mrs. Grace Ape, immediately moves to his side, asking, "What is the matter, principal?" Other staff, including the school nurse, Mrs. Titi, who was fondly called Nurse Titi, and the CRK teacher, Mr. Oyelena, join in. But Bebo, the principal in Stardom Schools, remains silent, shielding his face with his hands. As Bebo continues sobbing, Mrs. Ape instructs the chemistry teacher, Mr. Justus Annabel, to dismiss the assembly. She, Nurse Titi, and Mr. Oyelana escort the principal to his office, where the guidance counselor, Mrs. Becker Egbin, joins in comforting him. Other teachers arrive, including those who had not witnessed the incident firsthand, but the VP tells them to return to their classes. Calls from worried parents start coming in from different angles, with exaggerated rumors circulating. Some of the parents claimed Bebo was rolling on the floor. Others say he kept muttering, "Oluwa Egbami o, save me, oh God." Realizing the situation could escalate, Mrs. Ape, the vice principal, contacts the managing director, that is Mrs. Ibidun Gloss, who immediately drives to school despite having a function to attend. The morning has started normally. Stardom Schools, located in Lekki, in Lagos, had recently lowered its boarding fees from 250,000 naira to 165,000 naira per session. Take note of the amount of money. And thereby increasing the number of boarders and improving punctuality. However, the school compensated by raising the fee for excursion and other items by 93,000 naira. A decision humorously criticized by Mr. Audu, the fine arts teacher, known for his sharp wit. Mocking the MD's financial strategies, he joked, "In matters of economics, I swear the MD is a witch and a wizard rolled into one." The assembly, led by Angel, the chapel prefect, remember the name of the chapel prefect, Angel, included the usual school anthem and a pep talk, a tradition introduced by Bebo 7 years earlier. The speaker, Ikena Egbu, an SS1 student and poet. So Ikena Egbu was an SS1 student, he was also a poet. Like he was the one that gave the pep talk. Excitedly narrated his experience from an excursion to Jos in Plateau State. He praised Jos's cold weather and its unique acrobatic landscape. Remember that name. where rocks balanced in dramatic formations. He mentioned landmarks such as Flamingo Dam, the University of Jos, the Shere Hills, Waste Rocks, and the Solomon La Amusement Park. His speech, filled with humor and admiration, captivated both students and staff, especially when he boldly declared that he would rather settle in Jos than to japa to Canada or London. After Ikena's speech, Angel, who is the chapel prefect, remember, invited Mr. Bekbo to give his usual remark. This is the beginning of the assembly now. That is before this man started crying. To give his usual remarks. However, instead of responding as expected, he remained silent before eventually breaking into tears. This stung the students who had admired him for his inspiring leadership over his 24 years career. Nicknamed the Lekki Headmaster for his humorous imitation of the old TV character from the Village Headmaster. Bekbo had always been a passionate educator. Remember that he was nicknamed the Lekki Headmaster because he humorously imitated an old TV character from that movie, Village Headmaster. Let's continue. At her office, Mrs. Gloss, remember that Mrs. Gloss Ibidun was the MD. After the MD, the principal. After the principal, the vice principal. So remember. So at her office, Mrs. Gloss Ibidun, the MD, grows frustrated. Just the previous day, the school had celebrated its over 90% success in WAEC. Remember the percentage in WAEC. Teachers received snacks, wine, and 20,000 naira each, while those whose students scored distinctions got 30,000 naira. However, Mr. Obong Ukaku, a chemistry teacher, and Miss Taye Karim, geography teacher, faced scrutiny as two of their students had D's, though no one received the ultimate penalty, which at Stardom School meant immediate dismissal if a student scored an F9. Even the MD's cousin, Mr. Funso Daniels, had previously been sacked for this reason. Please remember, this particular school now had two chemistry teachers. One of them was the one who was in charge of the assembly, and that is Mr. Justus Annabelle. So you can see it there, Mr. Justus Annabelle. Then another one again, another chemistry teacher who was in charge of the SS3 class was, where is his name? Mr. Ubong Ukaku. Mr. Ubong Ukaku was the second chemistry teacher. So take note of that. Normally at Stardom schools, you are supposed to face the penalty for your student to fail or have D is immediate, just sack you at once. But this time they were not sacked. Let's continue. Mrs. Gloss summons Bekbo to her office, demanding an explanation. However, he merely mutters, "Thank you, I will be alright," and continues sobbing. Seeing no progress, she calls in Mr. Obewande, the physics teacher and the pastor, hoping he can cancel Bekbo. Wande speaks gently, assuring Bekbo of confidentiality. He gets no response. He then suggests calling Bekbo's wife. The principal writes down her international number because she was not in Nigeria, revealing she now lives in UK. The MD, attempting light humor, remarks that perhaps he misses her, but the tension remains. Mrs. Gloss attempts to call Beppo's wife, but both lines are unreachable. One day, concerned about Beppo's mental state, warns against letting him go home alone. Understanding the risk, the MD orders that he be escorted home, possibly accompanied by the guidance counselor. She also suggests he visits a clinic immediately, prioritizing the school's reputation and the principal's well-being. Chapter 2, the enticement. Let's see how he was enticed. Like, what was even making this man to be crying? Throughout chapter 1, I did not even see. Let's continue though. After 5 days of pressure and interrogation, a whole 5 days, oh, this man was still like that. Mr. Beppo Adewale finally revealed the reason of his distress. He was leaving Nigeria for the United Kingdom. The decision was not made lightly, as he deeply loved Stardom schools, particularly his students, and wanted to continue contributing to their growth. Remember why he didn't want to leave Nigeria for the UK. He struggled with the idea of abandoning them in a developing nation while moving to a country already far more advanced. Just imagine. However, his marriage was at risk due to his hesitation. And his wife, Seri Adewale, remember the name of Beppo's wife, Seri Adewale, had enlisted their two children, Nike and Kike. Remember the names of the two daughters of Beppo and Seri, Nike and Kike, to convince him to join them in the UK. He had no choice but to quit and reunite with his family. Luckily, he had already secured a teaching job abroad since he so much loved teaching. Beppo's 24 years career at Stardom schools. Remember, he spent 24 years in Stardom schools. Beppo's 24 years career in Stardom schools included 4 years as headmaster of Stardom Kiddies. So 4 years from 24 is 20, Nabi. So the 4 years he was a headmaster in Stardom Kiddies, which is the nursery and primary arm of the institution. It was during this time that he earned his famous nickname, the Lekki Headmaster. Initially, the name came from his habit of making the village headmaster from the old TV series, but it became permanent because of his leadership style. He frequently settled disputes among the often quarrelsome staff with wisdom and empathy, much like the fictional King Oloja in the show. King Oloja was part of the movie, in the drama, the TV drama series. So the way the king settles issue in that particular movie is how Beppo also settles issues. Now let's continue. During one such conflict resolution, the fine arts teacher, Mr. Audu, humorously remarked, the way the headmaster masterly resolves these fights reminds me of how King Oloja settled Rofo quarrels in Village Headmaster. The quarrel he settled, the King Oloja settled in that movie is the Rofo quarrel. So the same way Beppo settles issue is how the king settles the issue, especially that related to Rofo quarrel. So the man that nicknamed him, that gave him that particular name, the Lekki Headmaster, is Mr. Audu. Remember that. So as they had their own village headmaster, we also have our own Lekki Headmaster. That's Audu talking. The name stuck, persisting even after Beppo's promotion to principal of Stardom schools. His colleagues found his reluctance to relocate both amusing and baffling. To them, it seemed completely irrational, unthinkable. Thousands of Nigerians were sacrificing everything to Japa to relocate abroad. Yet Beppo, who had an effortless pathway, was hesitant. Unlike many others, he did not need to borrow money, not to even present a fake spouse at the embassy, or to even take on menial jobs upon arrival. His wife, Seri Adewale, was a nurse in the UK, rumored to earn up to £10,000, which is over 70 million naira just per month. Bebo himself was set, because the job he already got in UK, he was set to earn £3,600 per month as a teacher, whereas his salary presently as the principal of Stardom Schools was only 400,000 naira. So his colleagues quickly did mass calculation, 400,000 naira versus 6 million naira, with an exchange rate of £1 for 1,700 naira. The difference was staggering. During a gossip session, Mr. Oyolana, the CROK teacher, pointed out that Bebo would be spending his salary in pounds, not naira, meaning the cost of living would also be higher. However, Audu dismissed this argument, saying no matter how much he spends in pounds, he will still have a lot to send home. Imagine if he sends just £1,000 monthly. That's over 1.7 million naira. Do you want to compare that to the man earning 400,000 naira here? They are not on the same level, Joe. Audu then joked that Stardom's management must have bewitched Bebo, as his reluctance seemed unnatural. He even playfully declared that he would find Seri's home address, that's Audu, beg her to adopt him as a husband, and leave for the UK immediately. He dramatically picked up a few books, tucked them under his armpit, and stormed out of the staff room, shouting, "I'm heading to the airport for the next flight." His colleagues burst into laughter, but soon after the school bell rang, Audu was already late for his next class. Unknown to his colleagues, Bebo had long been preparing for retirement at 55. Remember that he was planning to retire at the age of 55, which was still 4 years away. He had been attending entrepreneurship seminars as he dreamed of financial independence. He admired the confidence of successful business owners despite the challenges they faced. He had even considered establishing his own school when he retired at the age of 55 from Stardom Schools, leveraging his English history education degree from the University of Benin and years of experience in school management. Remember that he studied English history education at the University of Benin. So take note of those things. However, he worried about securing enough capital to match the high standards he had become accustomed to at Stardom. Imagine leaving this big school and opening a small school. He had previously co-founded a school before now. The school he founded was called Fruitful Future with a friend after NYSC. Two of them finished NYSC together and they founded a school called Fruitful Future. But it collapsed due to the economic struggles of its low-income neighborhood. Due to the economic struggles of its low-income neighborhood. Remember this line, you will see it in the exam. Apart from education, which is his major thing that he wants to venture into after he retires, Bebo explored other business ideas, including farming, remember the occupations, food production, sachet or bottled water, and commercial transportation. These are the things that he actually planned of working on when he is done with when he retires. So he was particularly drawn to the transport business, believing it required menial startup startup capital and provided immediate returns. That is why he ventured into transport. Remember, believing it required minimal startup. You don't need too much capital to start it up, and it provided immediate returns. Unlike farming, where one must wait for crops to mature, or retail businesses where attracting business customers takes time, or transportation yielded instant revenue. He reasoned that a newer vehicle would attract more passengers, and that is true. However, he knew that many commercial drivers were dishonest and unreliable. He had seen colleagues at Stardom School attempt to run transport businesses only to be scammed by drivers and mechanics who exaggerated repair costs or defaulted on payments. Despite these concerns, Beppo still believed there must be a way to succeed. For now, though, all his entrepreneurial dreams have had to be set aside. He was preparing to restart his teaching career in the UK, where he would earn more and be reunited with Seri, Nikki, and Kike. He was aware that life anywhere had its challenges and that not all students abroad were respectful. He had even read about a Nigerian teacher in the UK who was allegedly insulted by a student on his first day in that school. However, Beppo believed that such incidents were isolated and that a good teacher should handle them diplomatically. Despite his mixed feelings about leaving Nigeria, his future was now set in motion. Okay, let's go back to chapter 3, where Beppo was able to listen to stories about people who migrated and all of that. So, titled Migration Tales, Beppo, who is contemplating relocating to the UK, becomes increasingly interested in migration stories from countries like the UK, Canada, and the US. He is drawn to the flexible payment system in these countries, particularly hourly wages, which contrasts with Nigeria's fixed salaries. Remember that line. Beppo learns that workers can earn between $1,150 to $250 per day, just a day, with the potential to make up to $2,400 monthly. But he also realizes the cost of living in these countries where rent, taxes, and other expenses are deducted from the earnings. Beppo hears stories of Nigerians migrating for better opportunities, including nurses, doctors, and others. Some under the guise of studying, but some also engage in dishonest practices to fund their moves. He recalls incidents such as Mr. Unku, remember the name, who took a 2 million naira loan and disappeared after planning to relocate, and a driver at Stardom School who attempted to sell a bus to send his child abroad. So people do different things just to relocate. Beppo's conversation with Sola, a former teacher in Stardom. Remember, Sola was a former teacher in Stardom who is now in UK. Offers insights into life in the UK. Sola and her husband relocated to the UK, and Sola encourages Beppo, reassuring him that moving to the UK as a nurse's spouse, because the husband to Sola, who was a former teacher in Stardom School, was a nurse, would be relatively stress-free, particularly because of a good pay for health workers. She shares the challenges they faced. Some of the challenges they faced, like that is a challenge that anybody who relocates might face, like renting a non-furnished apartment in Manchester and the low cost of education for their children. In case you are asked what are some of the challenges people face when they relocate, Sola also describes the excellent healthcare system in the UK, citing an incident where her own asthmatic daughter received immediate and efficient medical attention. Bebo reflects on the reasons many Nigerians choose to migrate, such as better infrastructure and education. Remember that. Sola shares how her children received free healthcare and education, and a far cry from the struggles Nigerian parents face to pay exorbitant school fees. The chapter also touches on the harsh realities of migration, with Bebo recalling a case where a wealthy man's children, remember this case, wealthy man's children had to withdraw from Stardom School after his sudden death, highlighting the financial instability many face in Nigeria. So because the father died, they withdrew the children from Stardom School. So had they been there in the UK, the children will continue schooling whether the father died or not. You get it now? The chapter ends with a discussion about the varied outcomes of migration, exemplified by Ricky, who thrives in the US, and Akindele, who faced difficulties working in low-paying jobs despite his long years in America. Akindele's story underscores the challenges of starting fresh in a new country and the need for financial stability before bringing dependence. So this one talks about different people that have relocated, what they faced and everything, and how it is with them. Let's go straight over to chapter 4, a case of visa denied. This is about the family of Ignatius. So let's look at what happened. A case of visa denied. Chapter 4. In chapter 4 of the Lekki Headmaster, the story revolves around Bebo, the principal of Stardom School, and his interactions with a parent called Mrs. Ignatius. The chapter opens with Bebo preparing for his night prayer, receiving a late night call from Mrs. Ignatius. Bebo, annoyed by the timing of the call, why will it come in this kind of time, answers to find out that her husband, Ibe Ignatius, the man is Ibe Ignatius, had stormed out of their house following a family crisis. Why would this man leave their house? Mrs. Ignatius confides in Bebo, please don't tell anybody, that their plans to relocate to London had fallen apart due to a DNA test revealing that Ibe is not the father of one of their children, called Favor. Mrs. Ignatius complains that Ibe now wants her and Favor to leave the house, although Favor is unaware of the situation. The Ignatius family was initially preparing to move abroad for a better life, with Ibe's job in an oil firm promising a financially secure future. Imagine. Mrs. Ignatius had also been planning to pursue a hairdressing career in the UK. Remember what Mrs. Ignatius wanted to pursue in the UK, hairdressing career. However, the paternity issue, which is the DNA issue, has shattered their plans, and the visa denial is linked to the scandal. Bebo reflects on his own life and professional experience, contemplating his upcoming move to the UK and his hope for a better future, even as he deals with the ongoing drama in the Ignatius family. His own was that, I beg, let me just even go to the UK. These people are disturbing me. I don't know how to settle this family issue. What's my business? Meanwhile, the narrative shifts to Mrs. Mary Ladele in the same chapter 4, who is at home in GRA Lagos, watching an Hollywood movie. Her children, Tim, Love, and Bibi, Remember the names of Mrs. Mary Ladele, Tim, Love, and Bibi, and all in bed. But Bibi wakes up in a state of fear, claiming to have seen Mr. Ayesoro, a teacher in Stardom, in her dream. Mr. Ayesoro is known for his prominent tribal marks, earning him the nickname Mr. Wahala among the students, which scares Bibi. Remember that Mr. Ayesoro had a prominent tribal mark. So because of the prominent tribal mark, the students are always afraid of him. They called him Mr. Wahala. And Bibi, one of the children of Mr. Ladele, Mrs. Mary Ladele, is always afraid of him. She had recently encountered him during a school event, and the sight of his tribal marks caused her distress. Imagine, not any other thing, just the tribal mark. Her mother, concerned, tries to comfort her, but Bibi continues to cry out for Mr. Wahala, that Mr. Ayesoro, remember. The unsettling incident leads to Mrs. Ladele's decision to take action, fearing that Bibi and her siblings might transfer to another school. The management of Stardom School decides to transfer Mr. Ayesoro to Stardom Hub, part of the school's cooperative wing, in an effort to address the situation. Instead of these people to remove their children, let us transfer this man to another part of the school without sacking him. The chapter thus intertwines personal crisis, school dynamics, and the tensions arising from Beppo's leadership and the actions of the Ignatius and the Ladele families. Alright, chapter 5, Snake in the Roof. In chapter 5 of the Lekki Headmaster, the story unfolds with Mrs. Ibidun Gloss. Remember that she is the MD of Stardom School, experiencing a rare moment of respite in her office due to a long-standing health issue affecting her buttocks. So it took her to about 30 years. She has been trying to go on with the issue. She escapes to a quiet room for a brief rest away from the 1,500 students and staff, keeping the nature of her pain a secret. She later takes a walk around the school surroundings, which leads her to a surprising discovery. What did this woman discover? Let's check. The MD decides to inspect a piece of land acquired by the school 2 years ago, which is just outside the back gate. Upon reaching the land, she finds that half of the 3 plots are occupied by various cars, some of which are from Stardom School. Confused and suspicious, she learns from the security guard, Jumbo, that staff members have been parking their cars there. Remember the name of the security guard, Jumbo. These vehicles, some high-end models, suggest that certain employees have been hiding their wealth, leading the MD to wonder about the source of these funds. How these our teachers get money to buy these BB cars? The MD society escalates as she calls for an immediate meeting with the principal, that is Mr. Beppo, and the accountant, Jeremy Amos. Jeremy Amos was the accountant, remember. In the meeting, the accountant explains that while some staff members used personal loans to buy their cars, others relied on school's cooperative society, which offers loans to staff. However, the MD's concern grows as she questions how the cooperative could afford to provide such loans to every staff member. The following day, the MD convenes a meeting with her family members on the board of directors. The school, Stardom School, was actually owned by a man. The man died. So the school is now being run by the children. So the board of co-directors comprises of the family. So Mrs. Ibidunglos is the MD. So who are these family members? Including her mother. Her mother was Mrs. Sholape Bayo. Her brother called Martins Bayo, a non-executive director, and Oye Bayo, the secretary. So all of them make up the board of directors, remember. The accountant and principal provide details about the cooperative's finances, revealing that it has 95 million naira with over 50 million naira loaned out to staff. Concerned about the potential threats this poses to the school, Chief Bayo suggests that staff could rebel and use money to start their own school. Why? What is the issue now? If we continue giving these people loan, they will start their own school. Remember that. As a result, the board imposes stricter regulations on the cooperative, limiting loans to 250,000 naira only per staff member and requiring MD's approval for all loan requests and election processes. So that is just all for this chapter. Chapter 6. Ade as well as Jide come versus comes. Which one is correct? Grammar. In this chapter, the school holds a staff meeting ahead of an open day event. Stardom School rewards its best dressed teacher each term, emphasizing the importance of teachers looking presentable. Some teachers are even fired for violating their dress code. Parents often bring gifts to teachers, especially class teachers, but they also come with complaints. The focus shifts to Mr. Bebo, who is responsible for delivering sack letters to teachers. He recalls an incident when Mrs. Ibidunglos, the MD, summoned him to deal with a complaint about Fafore, an English teacher. A parent called Mr. Guta. Mr. Guta complained about Fafore's use of grammar in class, complaining it was incorrect. The complaint causes a major scandal, and Favore faces potential dismissal. You will be fired. Why must you be using bad grammar to teach students in this school? Mr. Bebo reflects on his own painful experience with job loss. He remembers a time when he had to lie about money to avoid embarrassment after being out of work. This personal history makes him reluctant to fire anyone. But he has no choice when it comes to teachers who engage in unethical practices like altering student results or abusing children. His experience actually was when he had no job. The people, his neighbors paid light bill, everything to him. When it was time to deliver, he did not deliver. What happened to the money? Everybody started pointing hand at him. So to him, he lied. He lied. So that was the whole issue. He faced an embarrassment. So let's continue. Fafore, who is a punctual and dedicated teacher, is questioned by the principal and Mr. Bebo regarding the complaint, but he denies any wrongdoing. He explains his long commute and financial difficulties, sharing that his salary of 475,000 naira is not enough to afford the high rent in Lekki. Despite these struggles, Fafore has managed to buy land and build a home in Ogun State. He was complaining, but he has already bought a land and built a house in Ogun State where he comes from. At a staff meeting, the MD reveals that Fafore is being fired due to grammar error in his teaching. She criticizes him for the mistake, citing a parent's complaint. However, Mr. Bebo defends Fafore, explaining that the grammar was correct. The MD's decision to fire Fafore based on the complaint is revealed to be a mistake. After checking online, the teachers confirmed that Fafore's grammar was indeed correct, leaving the MD embarrassed and defeated. Now, what was the grammar that was correct or incorrect? It is Ade as well as Jide come versus comes. Forgetting that this one is accompaniment concord. When we use as well as together with, the first noun in the subject position determines the verb that should be used. So since Ade is singular in the subject position, the verb that should be used must be singular. So the answer is Ade as well as Jide comes, not come. Alright, chapter 7 talks about the ritualists. That is a school where he was teaching before. In chapter 7 titled Ritualist, Beppo's role as senior English teacher at Bisway Group of School. He was teaching, first of all, he founded a school, remember, called Fruitful Future with his NYC colleague, but the school did not thrive as a result of financial struggles. He later went to Bisway School after some years of being jobless now, to Bisway School, to Group of School, to go and teach. He was a senior English teacher there. When he tries to convince director Mr. Egi Meko, remember the name of the director in Bisway Group of School where he taught before he went to Stardom Schools, Director Mr. Egi Meko, to correct Group of School to Group of Schools. The director dismisses him, claiming divine inspiration for the name. I got it from above. The director often calls Beppo the learned linguist and Englisher. You are an Englisher, ironically leading to a discussion about the actual meaning of Englisher, a translator into English. After a parent raises the issue at PTA meeting, the director accuses Beppo of plotting against the school, referencing a Yoruba proverb about a guilty vegetable seller. Ilefo, Onio, Olefo, Okin, read whatever thing that is there. Beppo's religious background is revealed. Originally Catholic, he had joined his wife Cerise Pentecostal Truth Tellers Mission. Remember the name of the church he started attending, Pentecostal Truth Tellers Mission, but returned to Catholicism after she moved to UK. But that aside, one sleepless night at 2:30 a.m. Imagine that time of the night in the Ojikuti suburb of Lagos. Remember the place where in his room at Bisway staff quarters, Beppo contemplates taking sedatives. Instead, he gets water from his refrigerator at 2:51 a.m. when he witnesses the compound's lights go out. He observes 7 men, including 2 who emerged from a pit, handling a white cow. Imagine, white cow. Ahmed, with his crucifix and a broad-headed, double-edged machete, he confronts them. The confrontation reveals the director's involvement, and one unidentified man strikes Beppo's right wrist with a club, causing him to drop his machete. Despite threats to his life, the director intervenes to protect him. It's the same Bisway Group of School, remember? They were burying a live cow that night. So when he came armed with his machete, so they came to attack him, but the director intervened. The incident triggers memories of Beppo's time running Fruitful Future School. So that incident that happened in Bisway made it to remember what happened in Fruitful Future that he founded with his colleague, who was also a public school teacher after his national National Youth Service Corps scheme. They rented a 2-bedroom flat and implemented innovative teaching methods, including using marker boards instead of chalkboards and having students teach their parents daily lessons. Their fees were kept minimal, allowing installment payments, and they grew to over 70 pupils by the third session. Mr. Ogo, remember the name Mr. Ogo, a fee-paying parent whose son attended the school, approached them with a ritual proposal costing 35,000 naira, involving corn kernels. Remember, corn kernels to increase enrollment. If you do this, plenty children will come to your school. Your school will be populated. After they rejected his offer, he withdrew his child. The narrative then jumps forward to Bebo watching a news report about Mr. Ogo, who as a ritual doctor had defrauded and murdered a woman seeking fertility treatment. You are a spiritual doctor now. A woman came to meet you you murdered the woman. After collecting 9 million naira over a year, he lured her to his lush garden backyard, drugged her, placed her on a chair over a pit, and hid 2 accomplices club her before burying her alive. The newscast completes with disturbing images and an Aquaman's warning shows Mr. Ogo in handcuffs, surrounded by armed policemen. Remember why Mr. Ogo was arrested? Remember how much he collected from the woman? Deeply troubled, Bebo considers reporting the Biswe incident to various authorities, the police, though he lacks money for bribes and fear. Animal rights organizations, unsure if they exist in Nigeria, the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education. His concerns include director's potential spiritual retaliation and uncertainty about the racial purpose. The secretary is mentioned as relaying director's message requesting Bebo's presence. The chapter concludes at approximately 11:07 a.m., 2 hours after the 9 a.m. call, with Bebo's strategic departure before meeting the director. The director clears out his belongings. Bebo clears out his belongings from both his staff quarters and the staff room. When the director attempts to explain the incident as a prayer ritual connected to his deceased father, who had donated the school land, Bebo maintains complete silence, having already decided to leave Biswe's environment. So this particular chapter talks about everything that happened in Biswe school, where he taught before quitting and going to Stardom schools. Remember that he was a senior English teacher in this school, and he tried changing the name of the school from Biswe Group of School to Biswe Group of Schools. All right, chapter 8, missions unaccomplished. What must be this mission that was not accomplished? In this chapter, Bebo reflects on unresolved issues as he prepares to leave the country. One significant issue is a prolonged legal battle between the families of 2 of his pupils, Banki and Tosh. What began as a minor dispute had escalated over 3 years, souring into an intense public feud. Bebo, who had hoped to mediate the conflict, found himself unable to resolve it before his departure. The school was in the process of selecting a new set of prefects, following a democratic process that was introduced by Stardom schools. Aspirants purchased forms to contest for various positions. Head boy and head girl forms cost 50,000 naira. Deputy positions were 40,000 naira, while others, such as chapel prefect, health prefect, social prefect, labor prefect, and punctuality prefect, cost 25,000 naira each. The candidates were then screened by a panel of academic and not academic staff with 2 alumni observers to ensure fairness. Remember those who were selected, a panel of academic and non-academic staff with 2 alumni observers to ensure fairness. The screening was based on academic performance, moral history, length of stay in the school, and a debt-free condition, which was a key requirement as emphasized by Mrs. Ibidunglos's witty saying, if you want a debtor to lead fee payers, ask a tenant to lead the landlord. Means they will not pay again now. On the day of the speech event, Banky and a student in SS2 made an inflammatory comment during his campaign speech, calling Toshi's father an ex-convict, which upset many, particularly Tosh. Remember that Banky and Tosh were SS2 students, had long-lasting issue for up to 3 years now. Now 2 of them are contesting for the position of head board. So let's continue. Tosh stood up and stormed out of the hall, causing a scene that escalated into a heated confrontation. The principal reprimanded Banky for his choice of words, which were seen as morally unacceptable. However, the tension between Banky and Tosh went beyond this event. Their rivalry had been brewing for years, involving their family members as well. When Banky and Tosh were in GSS 3, that's 3 years ago, they competed fiercely in a dance contest, with Banky winning by a narrow margin. Tosh's mother felt that her son had been robbed and lodged an official complaint, eventually threatening legal action. The situation was further aggravated when the mothers clashed again during the PTA election, where Banky's mother won the position of treasurer over Tosh's mother. Tosh's father, Chief Didi Ogba, remember Tosh's father, had a complicated past. Although not an ex-convict, he had been involved in a controversial legal case years ago where he was detained for 36 months due to allegations of misappropriating a government contract worth 2.5 billion naira, though he was released after the trial and the court ruled that he was not directly guilty. The controversy lingered. In response to Banky's comment, Chief Ogba demanded an apology from both parents, from both Banky and his parents, as well as a public retraction in the school magazine. Banky's parents rejected these demands, arguing that the accusations were unfounded and that Banky had never mentioned Chief Ogba's name. They saw the demand as a form of victimization. Bebo, who had close relationship with both families, had hoped to mediate and bring about a peaceful resolution. However, his attempts to pacify the situation were unsuccessful as Bebo prepared to leave the country. The legal case was nearing its conclusion, and he was still hopeful for an out-of-court settlement. Remember, he was hoping for an out-of-court settlement for this particular issue between Banky and Tochi, the families. He had advocated for alternative dispute resolution. Remember what he advocated for? Alternative dispute resolution to avoid further escalation. Another issue that troubled Bebo was the future of the Innovation Club. Remember, future of Innovation Club, particularly the BRIT project. The BRIT project was one of the things that also troubled Bebo. This initiative aimed to create a phone using recycled materials such as panels and chips, and had already attracted interest from the media government and an NGO called Life Grid. These particular projects had already attracted many people. The BRIT project particularly. Despite not being a scientist himself, Beppo had supported the project, believing that invention transcended academic discipline. He had hoped to be part of the project's launch, but his departure meant he might miss the final stages of the research and production process. Beppo was concerned that without his involvement, the project might not reach its full potential. Let me say it again. Beppo was concerned that without his involvement, the project might not reach its full potential. He vowed that if the project succeeded, he would make every effort to attend the launch, even from abroad. Chapter 9, Laughing Waterfalls. This chapter focuses on the school's excursions, which were led by Beppo, the headmaster of Stardom School. The excursions were designed to expose students to various parts of Nigeria, promoting both local and international learning experiences. The school was known for organizing educational trips and events that allowed students to explore famous landmarks, historical sites, and cultural festivals. Beppo championed the ideal of excursions, believing that it was important for students to experience their own country before they eventually studied abroad. Over his 2 decades in Stardom, he successfully implemented an excursion every term, covering popular and lesser-known tourist sites. Some of the destinations include Igokosi Warm Springs, Erin Ijesha Waterfalls, Owu Waterfalls, and Gurara Falls, along with other proposed trips to waterfalls across Nigeria. These excursions expose students to Nigeria's natural beauty and rich heritage. Remember the waterfalls they visited. In addition to the excursions, Beppo ensured the students were engaged in various activities such as attending cultural festivals and visiting major tourist sites in Lagos. The students also visited both affluent areas like Banana Island and impoverished zones such as Ilegunle to understand the vast socio-economic contrast within Nigeria. So remember why they went to those places, to expose them to both the affluence and the impoverished area. The excursions were all educational, covering important historical locations such as the National War Museum in Umuahia and the first-story building in Badagry, which was the site of Nigeria's first translation of the Bible. A significant moment in this chapter is when Beppo takes the students to Badagry, where they learn about the town's role in the slave trade. The trip serves as a poignant reminder of Nigeria's painful past. At the Black Heritage Museum, Beppo reflects on the tragic history of the transatlantic slave trade and questions the new form of slavery, where Nigerians desperately seek to migrate abroad for better opportunities, even if it means enduring hardship and exploitation. This chapter illustrates the profound impact of these excursions on the students, exposing them to both the wonders and the painful history of their country, and encouraging them to understand the true value of education and self-improvement. Chapter 10, Passport Pains. Beppo, uninterested in relocating abroad, neglected renewing his passports for 2 years, and the outbreak of COVID-19 further complicated matters. When the pandemic subsided, he delayed renewal, fearing the long queues and the new rules at the immigration office. The pressure from his family to travel forced him to renew it urgently in 2022. But the overwhelming rush at passport offices, especially in Lagos, discouraged him. He explored alternative opinions, including bribing officials so that he would not stand in the queue with others as he was told to do, or going to a less crowded immigration office in Ibadan. Bebo contacted an agent in Ibadan called Tai. That was the person he contacted, who informed him that for a faster process he would need to pay an inflated fee of 100,000 naira for a 10-year passport renewal. The official fee was 70,000 naira though. Additionally, Tai recommended paying 20,000 naira more for faster document collection. Bebo traveled to Ibadan by public bus. Why did he go by public bus? Avoiding the security concerns of driving his own car. The journey was smoother due to improvements in the Lagos-Ibadan expressway. During the trip, Bebo reflected on the growth along the expressway, noting an increase in religious organizations, schools, and businesses, particularly in Ogun State. Remember what he noted on the expressway, Lagos-Ibadan expressway. Increase in religious organizations, schools, and businesses, particularly in Ogun State. He admired the expansion, although he questioned whether Nigeria's focus on the Lagos-Ibadan route was justified, given the significance of routes in other areas like Bayelsa. His thoughts wandered into politics, but he quickly refocused on the present. In Ibadan, Bebo noticed changes in the city, such as the disappearance of the challenge roundabout and the rise of private universities. He recalled a previous visit to the University of Ibadan with his students and reflected on the city's historical and political significance. By 6:40 a.m. the next day, he was at the passport office, having arrived early for his appointment, which he nearly missed due to a late start and a long conversation with his wife. At the immigration office, Bebo encountered security checks and was directed to meet Tai outside the office, where he discovered that Tai was not a government official but a business center operator working with immigration staff. Remember who Tai was? Tai completed the paperwork and verified Bebo's national identity (NIN), but Bebo was informed that he needed to visit the NIN office to validate it before proceeding with data capturing. At the NIN office, Bebo experienced further delays due to network issues and had to wait for weeks for validation, which risked missing his travel date. Despite the frustrations and extra costs involved, Bebo was satisfied with the quick passport processing he received through Tai's help, though he still had to deal with bureaucracy and technical challenges. Chapter 11, Points of No Return. In this chapter, the school community prepares for Bebo's departure. Just imagine. At Stardom School, a grand farewell ceremony is held in the main hall, celebrating Mr. Adewale Adebebo, the principal. The event includes various performances by the students, such as comedy skits and dances, showcasing Nigerian cultural arts. The drama club humorously imitates Bebo's mannerisms, like his famous phrases such as "other things being equal" and "if you say education is too expensive, try ignorance." These skits reflect Bebo's unique approach to teaching and his close bond with the students. Bebo is emotional as he reflects on his time at the school. He particularly cherishes the canoe dance from the Badagry people, which he had introduced to the students after watching a performance at the National Theatre in Lagos. This dance reminds him of the painful history of slavery, and he becomes deeply emotional during his performance, almost reliving the horrors of the past. His outburst in the middle of the performance, shouting "No!" and later improvising it met with applause as the audience misinterprets his emotional outbursts. Mrs. Ibidun Gloss, the MD of Stardom School, praises Beppo for his dedication and impact on the school. She recounts the story of how Beppo was hired by her late father, Chief David Ajay, 24 years ago. Despite his delayed start at the school, Beppo quickly proved himself as an exceptional teacher, embodying the quality of competence, passion, and morality. She praises his contributions to the growth of Stardom School, highlighting his lasting impact on students and the school's success. The MD also presents Beppo with a token of appreciation, $10,000 in a domiciliary check, so that I can withdraw it when it gets to the UK. The announcement is met with excitement from the audience. Beppo, overwhelmed with emotion, struggles to speak, and after a moment of tears, he expresses his gratitude. His emotional departure is deeply felt by everyone in the hall as his 24 years at the Stardom School comes to an end. Chapter 12, the last chapter, the dusk. What happened here? In the first chapter of the Lekki Headmaster, the protagonist, Beppo, prepares for his trip to London. This is the last chapter, please, not the first. He is determined not to repeat his past mistake by missing a flight. 6 years ago, he missed his British Airways flight because of a mix-up with the time. This time, he is sure his Emirates flight departs at 10 p.m. Despite his friend Sherry's teasing and concern, at 3 p.m., he leaves his Adeniyi Jones in Ikeja, Lagos, to avoid traffic. That is where he lives, Adeniyi Jones' home in Ikeja, Lagos, to avoid traffic. So remember, he reflects on how the government's ban on Okadas, that is commercial motorcycles, has made traveling more difficult, but now he plans to take an Uber. Before leaving, his landlord, Mr. Ogunwale, remember the name of his landlord, Mr. Ogunwale, arrives with his family to bid him farewell. The landlord insists on driving Beppo to the airport, and Beppo is moved by their generosity. Beppo had become close to Ogunwale's family, especially their grandson called Jide, whom he had been tutoring in elocution and African history. Mr. Ogunwale prays for Beppo's safe travels, and Beppo packs his bags, including gifts requested by his wife, such as locust beans and melon seed. Remember what Beppo's wife requested for that he takes to UK? Locust beans and melon seeds. He had previously sold his car for 1.5 million naira and gifted other belongings to his landlady. Imagine, because he wanted to travel. At the airport, Beppo meets Mrs. Grace Abe, the vice principal of Stardom School, and other colleagues. They are there to bid him farewell. They joke about Beppo's journey, and Mr. Oyelana praises his contribution to the school. Beppo checks in, and after a long wait, he finally boards the plane at 10:45 p.m. He briefly falls asleep during the flight, having a nightmare where he is abroad. He where is aboard a slave ship, but he is jolted awake by a flight attendant just before takeoff. After his departure, reality sets in for the students of Stardom School. Beppo's absence is deeply felt in that morning assembly, especially during the morning assembly, where the vice principal addresses the students instead of Beppo, the principal. The students express their sadness and resistance to his absence. However, the mood quickly changes when Beppo surprises everyone by returning to the school declaring, "I am back." The school celebrates joyfully, lifting him on their shoulders and singing the school's victory song. That is just the end. So these are the characters and their major roles. We have Mr. Adewale Adebekpo, Mrs. Ibludu Golos, Chief David Aje, Chief Mrs. Solape Bayo, Martins Bayo, Oye Bayo. Then the Stardom stars, we have Jeremy Amos, we have Mrs. Misape, Mr. Justus Sanabel, Mr. Yelana, Mrs. Titi, that is not called Nurse Titi, Mrs. Beke Agbin, Mr. Audu, Mr. Bewande, Mr. Fafore, Mr. Jumbo. You can read all of that. They are about 44 in number. They are 44 in number. And that is the end of the story.